Calling the meeting to order. And I guess first order of business is any questions on the agenda? If not, we can move on to the minutes of our last meeting.
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
And we get a second.
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done.
Aye.
I'm very nonchalant. Next item is approval of the minutes from the January 10th meeting that we had last month. Any questions? If not, can we have a motion to approve it?
I move we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done. Okay, next item on the agenda is public comments.
Yeah,
Give us your updates.
yeah. Welcome,
Okay,
everyone.
Frank,
Merrick, yep.
Merrick.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Welcome to Carver. Excited to kind of share what's been going on. As I was thinking about kind of what I wanted to share, I kind of realized that a lot of the updates that we've been giving for many years have to do with residential development and housing. And so even though that's really important and an important part of our community and what we do here, I'm really happy to share that we have a lot of commercial development that has recently occurred and is coming down the pike. So if you get an opportunity, I think they're closed now, but Getaway Motor Cafe opened a few weeks ago. And they serve coffee in the mornings, and then Wednesday through Saturday they have cocktails. And aside from the drinks and the breakfast treats that they have, I think one of the things that I am really appreciating, I think the community does, is it's a community gathering space, and so people can meet and have a little meeting or meet an old friend or family. And we really were kind of missing that space, especially in the mornings. Of course, there's plenty of options for having a cocktail or a beer in the later hours, but during the morning and daytime hours, and they usually frown upon if I meet somebody for a beer during the day. So that's always a good option to meet somebody for coffee. We also have a new daycare that just opened, Next Steps Learning Center, just to the west of Quick Trip. Beautiful facility. I think they had 2 open houses last week, Thursday and I think Saturday. But if you ever find yourself with an opportunity to take a look at it, it's like no kind of daycare that I've been in. Beautiful facility, almost frankly looks like a little school. They have a beautiful kind of like 2-story kind of, not really a gymnasium, but kind of open play space. It's just really nice having that kind of space. And if you're following the news, which I'm sure all you folks do, a lot of cities, especially smaller cities, really have a hard time finding childcare for folks. And so we are fortunate to have Next Steps. So welcome.
Hi.
Let me get you a chair.
I can go on the other part, get that one.
Sounds good.
Oh, isn't there one there?
Yeah, there's one there.
Right here, there's one right there.
And one over here.
And one here too.
It's coming on the around.
And Children for Tomorrow, as well as we have a River Wild Learning Center that just opened downtown. So going from really no formal centers, just in-home centers, to 3 centers has really been great. We also just got an application in that's going to be on the Planning Commission agenda for Thursday, which one of your colleagues is a member of, Jim Wagons, on our Planning Commission. We got a site plan application for a hometown bank / coffee shop, drive-through coffee shop. They haven't named who their coffee vendor would be, but that would go just to the east, or just kind of on the Jonathan Carver Parkway side of Quick Trip. So I would say with that kind of on the precipice, and then looking at kind of all the other activity that we have had, I would say within the last year we've had more business, commercial, and industrial conversations with not only developers but prospective developers than probably the last 5 years combined. And so it's really invigorating to see us kind of turn the corner maybe from the economy and the pandemic slowdown to see people investing in our community and the county in general. So a couple other things that you might be interested in. The mayor and council have really spearheaded a project to certify the city's downtown flood levee. So that was constructed in 1965, around that time, right after the flood event. It was built as a community project, which is a really great thing. The downside is we don't have engineering plans, and it wasn't built to engineering standards where FEMA would accept that, so people are paying, in some cases, a really exorbitant amount for floodplain insurance. And so the city for decades now, I think, has been on a quest to certify the flood levee. We kind of centered around a concept a few years ago and have gathered some momentum. We've gotten some partnerships from the Lower Minnesota Watershed District. We got $2 million from the federal government through Congressman Emmer's office, $300,000 from the state, and just talking to the mayor and the council, we're released in one version of the state bonding bill for $6 million. So it's about a $12 million project. If you think about it, it's not a total rip down of our existing levee, but it's more surgical. So in some spots they'll make it higher, in some spots they'll push it out. One of the really big pieces is making sure that you can do continual maintenance on it. And so some of the areas you'll see a really steep slope. And so what they'll try to do is kind of make it a more gradual slope so you can maintain it, check for if there are flood issues, add an internal drainage system. On the kind of the backside of City Hall, it's really tight if you walk back there along Spring Creek. What they would do is actually kind of pound into the ground. Sheet piles would basically think of big metal, like a 4x8 piece of plywood, but larger. Pound that in to create kind of a false wall, put a stone top on it, but that would protect on the Spring Creek levee side. So those are some of the really big projects that we're working on. Also looking at adding on to our fire station. There's a lot of literature out there right now that the storage of their turnout gear, which they wear to fight fires, etc. If you store that in the apparatus bay where there's diesel exhaust and other off-gassing, that can be a carcinogen and could eventually lead to cancer. So we're planning a building addition so their turnout gear can be housed in its own climate controlled environment. And then we're also looking at building about a 10,000 square foot building addition for our public services department, or a new building for all their vehicles and equipment. Kind of the less exciting part of growth and development is every time you get a new development, there's an extra street to plow, another park to mow, etc. And so we want to make sure that our vehicles, which are expensive, are inside. We store quite a bit of stuff outside right now in several locations. So we're looking to kind of condense that and be more efficient with our time and resources. So those are kind of the big crumbs, but I'm happy to discuss anything that might be top of mind or topics you're curious about related to Carver.
What's your population?
We are unofficially probably 6,300, I'm imagining.
Okay.
They're usually about a year behind. The Met Council gives us a population estimate, usually around April of every year, which is, they look at the year back for building permits, so we're always a year behind, but we eclipsed 5,000 by a hearty amount, which was a big piece for us because then we could get state aid road funding. But I would say about 6,300. We're estimated to be about 10,000 by the end of the decade. So 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said that's not possible, but the way we've been growing, I would say that, so the last 3 years we've had around 150 building permits. And when I started, when Jim was the mayor, we were probably right around 20 or 25 a year. So it's grown exponentially.
So you have a lot of houses.
Yes,
A lot of houses that you're still building in
Correct.
this decade?
yeah, so the biggest development we have going on is by Lennar. It's called Timber Creek. So it's, if you take either Monroe Drive or Ironwood Drive past the elementary school, it's a product by Lennar, 330 homes, about 220 single family and about another 100 townhomes. We also have the Preserve, which is just north of that. It's a product by Brandel Anderson, probably about another 80 single family homes. And then we're also looking at extending water and sewer services to, if you think about where you take 11 south to Jordan, where 11 and 40 meet, to the west of that, there's a company called Summergate. They're a residential development company. And they have probably close to 500 to 600 acres. And right now the city council is going through an exercise to consider extending utilities out there, which would create another opportunity for more housing. Because basically most of our housing right now is west of the elementary school. But we've talked a lot about that area. That's maybe a potential site for another elementary school one day. So we've talked, or at some point we'll try to marry the school and the development company together to see if we can create another school site. We have a future pretty large park out there, and so that concept or model of bringing a city park with a school site and using both of those grounds for the school seems to be working really well. So that's something that we try to recreate. Not that the school is planning to build, and that's not the message I'm putting out there, but we want to at least create an opportunity and an option. As some of you might know, Carver Elementary is full, even with their expansion. If we kind of package all of Carver's kids along with the new developments in Southwest Chaska, that really has filled Carver Elementary, and frankly, all the kids from like Carver Bluffs and a lot of the kids that are outside of city limits, kind of towards East Union, all those kids are going to Clover Ridge. So as we continue to grow, the numbers would tell you that there'll be a need for more educational facilities in the future.
Why do people come out here to live? What's the motivation?
Whew. You know,
Cheap housing, right?
In a nutshell, I don't know.
yeah, I would say, and there's going to be different schools of thought in this, so don't take my word as the authority, but I would say it's kind of a couple things. One is transportation. Can you get to where you want to go reliably? 212 is a big piece of that. And then you can traditionally, and the gap kind of closes every year, but you can get more home for your money. So if you think I can buy a brand new 3-bedroom home for $450 in Carver, that home might cost you $500 in Chaska. But there are also people that kind of love the proximity. So like, I would argue, I know there's probably a lot of folks in Chaska, I would argue that Carver is more of a small town than Chaska is at this point, and I think you can feel that. You can be up by the elementary school and get that suburban feel, but being in downtown Carver, you feel like you're in a small town. They have like turkey and ham bingo, downstairs by the line, so you can get kind of that nostalgic kind of small town feel, and I think that's why people tend to stay. I think the hard part, as we grow, we went from, I think, what was our population in 2000, Jim, like 3,000?
1266.
1266. So if you go 1266 to 6,000 in 20 years, think about, if you had a small family and then you add all these other people to your family, like what you value and what you want to invest in, all those things change. And so I think the hardest part for the community and the council as leaders is to, establish this vision of what they want Carver to be, because some people, like the idea of a bank and hopefully one day a grocery store and all these amenities, and some people are like, I moved to Carver when it was 3,000 people and I don't want anybody else to be here. And so trying to, we like to use the example of trying to get your family to choose, what restaurant to go to. Somebody wants pizza, someone wants cheeseburgers, someone wants Chinese, and so that'll be an ongoing process, one we're looking forward to. We're doing our strategic planning in April, but it's a heavy lift, and there are different schools of thought, but that's a long-winded answer to a short question.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's because Carver is a wonderful place to live.
That's an unbiased opinion.
Yeah.
So I think we're super lucky to have you in your role, your peers in Victoria and Chaska and Chanhassen leading the charge, and we are the fastest growing county in the state. I just pointed at the logo. That's not unintentional for City of Carver to put through the nostalgic print and the water tower and to tie those small and charm, and you have your work cut out for you as you grow.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question as to how are you the council and your staff thinking through what library might look like in the city of Carver in the next 10 or 20 years?
You know, there hasn't been a lot of recent conversation. By recent, I mean, you know, I think maybe the last time there was maybe a coordinated discussion was when Jim was the mayor, you know, and, you know, at that time, there was a pretty heavy leaning into kind of, you know, it's apropos that you mentioned the 4 other cities, like, the thinking at that time was we don't need a library just to, like a physical big library just to be considered as like a peer to our other cities. So like, and one of the things I take pride in with Carver is that I think we have kind of an other-centered approach. So we have a partnership with Chaska for recreation. If you think about it, like it's a less than a 3-mile walk from here to the library in Chaska, and so you know, is it a great use of resources to build a $50 million library, you know, by the elementary school? That's for other people to decide. But I think our culture and kind of the way we think about things is that it's better to partner. We partner for police services, we partner for recreation, we can partner for library services. You know, that's also an ongoing conversation as needs change and expectations evolve. But from a kind of a council staff perspective, there hasn't been any discussion. I would also offer that from a kind of a community resident relationship and conversation, I haven't had one person in any type of recent memory even advocate for a library right in Carver. So I don't know if that
Yeah, no, it's
gets
helpful.
at it. Yeah.
Actually, I think the county may have a ordinance on the books.
Miles away.
Yeah. So at the moment, we could not build one downtown.
Yep.
And I would say on behalf of Chaska, we see a large population of Carver residents coming to the Chaska Library, just to echo what you're saying, Brent, certainly, so.
And I think the lockers are, you know, that's a small thing, but I think that's a great investment, and, you know, and I think hopefully the numbers show that a lot of people use them, and I think that's a, you know, it's a great example of kind of working smarter with, you know, public funds to, like, you know, not build a one-size-fits-all for a community, that you can do different things in different places, so. And I just want to congratulate you on having Jody fill this role, because she was on our park commission for many years and has
Oh,
done
yeah?
a wonderful job. And so also participated, and I think we had you participate in the design session for this building. So
Yes.
everything you like about this building.
Right, yeah, follow me.
Thanks, Brent.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Any other
Thank you so
questions?
much.
Yep, thank you. Take care.
Okay. Funny thing for me was when I moved here 19 years ago, I found that the houses at Carver was actually more expensive than in Chaska at the time. Or the new builds anyway.
Bigger, newer.
Yeah, but any input from
No, I don't have any other public input that's been sent my way, so.
then the next item on the agenda is election for officers. What is that? Election of board officers. They're requesting approval. Is there a list for
So
that?
for this board,
Right.
for going through that process again of the officers
That's
for the
currently
year
on.
ahead, yep.
It's kind of weird that we elect ourselves if we cannot vote. How does that? Is that we vote for it, or how does that work?
I think you put up nominations
Nominations.
At the table, as I recall,
Yeah.
yep, and then voted here for it.
Charles, if you're interested, I'll nominate you to be president for a second term.
Wait, hang on. So I don't have to be president of second
You don't have to
term.
be.
I second it.
Wait.
So I think it's, you
Are you
always,
sure?
You come up with questions, that are stimulating questions. And I think that's nice, and I think it's important.
You know, I was telling them, I went to Chaska Library to say, hey, I want to use my library card. And then the librarian said, not active. I had to apply for a new one. Which, I'm glad I did that. And then I already did 2 online books and 2 more on hold. So, and they're audio ones, so I'm kind of lazy. It's easier to just listen than to read. Okay, so you got all in favor?
Are there any other
Can I say that since it's
nominations?
for myself? It's a bit self-serving to say.
I think you need to say.
Is there any other nominations?
Right,
Yes, all right.
3 times.
Can I jump in a minute? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I just was wondering, I lose all track of time. Is this your second year, Charles, or your first?
I think this is my second year.
It is.
Going into second year. My first year was
Okay.
last year.
You have to
Because
say-
that's the part I
say it 3
remember from the
times.
bylaws, is that it needs to rotate every 2 years.
Okay.
So you're good. Okay. Somebody needs to be in the wings for January or February of next year, I think.
Okay. Any other nominations? I need to ask for 3 times.
One more time.
Any other nominations?
There you go.
You want to nominate yourself?
I don't think I.
Okay, then we're gonna take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Yeah.
It's really warm here. Next item is any unfinished business legislative day. Is it coming up or?
Charles, do you need secretary as well,
Oh,
as an officer?
Right.
oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I didn't know any other position other than the president and secretary. Before we.
I think
move
those are
forward.
the only elected.
Yep, I think you're right. Mhm.
So any nomination for secretary?
I nominate Frank.
I second it.
Oh dear. That's
Any- Any other nomination? I got to ask it
Sometimes
3
if you don't
times.
speak really fast.
I want to encourage other people that is a very easy position. The only time you do anything is when he doesn't show up, so.
Oh, is that right? I cannot show up. I feel like I had to show up, so now I know.
3 times.
Any other nominations? Any other nomination, Henry? No?
Yeah.
Sure.
Would you like to be secretary?
No, it's alright. I don't want to steal your moment. You got it. Go for it.
Then we're going to take a vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion
You have to
passed.
vote for yourself?
And I missed who
I
seconded?
abstained.
Huh?
Jan, did you second?
No, he second.
Alan did, thank you.
Is it legislative day coming up?
Yes, very quickly, on Tuesday, February 28th. And so just to provide a couple brief updates on that, and Commissioner Uderman, you might want to speak to this as well, because I know you've been working with some of the MELSA folks on this piece. But there's a couple of bills that are going to be spoken on and shared in session that morning of the 28th down at the Capitol. One related to the regional library funds, and then also the second related to education. Representative Lucy Ream from Chanhassen is serving as an author for the education bill that's going forward. So at our MELSA board meeting last week, Scott Vreezy, the MELSA director, was looking to our board of library directors to come and help support those bills on legislative morning. And then certainly folks can reach out to their legislatures and set up appointments, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be on that day. It could be after that. There will be time later, as he mentioned too, even later in the spring before the bills go back that we may have some time to visit as well. I'm meeting with Scott from Melsa on Thursday morning. He would actually, he's gonna try to coordinate a meeting with himself and myself and Lucy and in the coming weeks at some point. So I don't know if you wanna add anything else
Nice job.
to that.
There's, I think it's been 15 years since Melsa had additional state funding. And so it's looking very promising that it'll be about $4 million in the bill. Democrat control across the board. Lucy's carrying the bill, who has a strong tie, I think, to the Chanhassen Library. I don't know, did she work there or volunteer there or?
She worked there.
Yeah, she's a shelter.
So huge supporter within that, and then how that would trickle down to us would be is that $4 million would be statewide, about $1 million to a year would come through Melsa, and then that would either be allocated by dollar amount or by formula. And so, being the chair of the Melsa board now, on behalf of not only Melsa but Carver County, is I'd rather it be by equal chunks versus formula, because that brings disproportional dollars back to Carver County. So I was with Scott today, spending a lot of time in Carver County. And we talked about that.
Okay.
What's the plan if we get the 1.2? We have 2 new members, 3 new members to the Melsa Library Board. One is Jessup, Country Jessup from Anoka. One is former state rep and former state senator Bingham from, what county is she part of? Is that Dakota? No, it's Washington.
I think it's Washington.
It's Washington,
Yep.
because Wayne spun off, and I forget who the third one was, but both Bingham and Halverson, this is for all the political nuts on the board, Bingham and Halverson are both Democrats, both serve in the House, both have really good ties to the people there, and they said they're not gonna give it 100% guarantee, but just a notch short of it, getting more funding for the library. So then our work will be cut out for us next board meeting to say, all right, if we were to get a piece of that 1.2 million, how would we spend it most effectively? So there's ideas percolating, a lot of energy at the table. I don't know that, we have a lobbyist, we pay to be part of a lobbying group. His name is Sam Walseth, and so he's also given us indication that things are strong there. And so we have things lined up to go see our legislators, to call and follow up with them, a leave behind piece that includes a book, and then how do we, quote unquote, lobby thereafter. And then equally as important, if we do get the money, how do we follow up a year later when we're not at the table or the trough for money to show how do we spend those dollars. So a lot of energy happening in library through Melsa right now.
Is it education bill or is it a bill specific for library?
Is it education? I forget what it goes, what it rolls up to.
Libraries come under education.
Yeah, yep.
So I don't know if the bill does,
Yeah.
but the library, libraries for the state come under the education department.
Okay. So for that bill, the portion that goes to Melsa is 4.2.
4 million had come through the state. Melsa would get 1.2. Melsa is the largest represented population. 100 libraries roll up to Melsa with, like I said, 7 library systems. So they'd have the biggest single chunk, but it'd still be a minority amount of dollars for the full
Okay.
floor. Yep.
So I'm planning to go down to the Capitol for Legislative Day. It's early because the first session starts at 8:30. But if anybody is interested in finding out more information or would like to know when we're making visits or coordinate, you can be in touch with me. Just give me a
Is
call.
it on, what you said, February 28th?
It's Tuesday, February 28th, so it's right around the corner.
You said early
Yeah.
morning, how early are you talking about?
So the first session is at 8:30 that morning at the Capitol. Yep.
Okay. So if anybody wants to go to meet you, do you want to meet here and go there, or do you want to go there and meet?
Why don't you reach out to me after the meeting, outside of the meeting, and we can coordinate or discuss how we'd want to approach that. Yep.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday. Mhm.
Because I think the past meetings that we had, it was been online. Were they gonna have anything that's online also, or is it all gonna be in person?
That I don't know yet, because there's a couple legislators that we haven't reached out to yet, so
Okay.
that's why kind of pulling this together shortly before the date, but we'll see what we can do. And if nothing else, there is opportunities after the legislative day, and that could end up being better for some of the visits too, so, yep.
I'm interested.
Need to check my schedule.
Okay.
Thank you. That was interesting. Administrative reports next. Team updates. You have Tricia.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. It is my great delight to be back in front of you all. Hi. I feel like I'm doing virtual story time here. I'm the Youth Services Librarian at Watertown and Norwood Young America. And I'm also currently serving as the Youth Services Chair for our group of Youth Services Librarians here in Carver County. So I'm delighted to be in front of the board again and be able to talk about what I get most excited about in my job is doing youth service programs and share a little bit about our past year with you and also talk just very briefly about moving forward. I know you all got something like this. I'm not going to read it because I don't do well with that kind of thing. I'm more of an off-the-cuff kind of person, which sometimes gets me in big trouble with talking. So I'll talk too fast sometimes, but I want to make sure I'm respectful of our time as well. Some of the things I want to start and really talk about, we have library programs, and I really see them as gems with youth service programs. Some of them are real sparkly diamonds that we hear a lot about and maybe have a lot of energy around. And some of our youth programs are more the ongoing, maybe I wouldn't say not polished, but they're part of our regular stable of things that we do here in Carver County. And one of the exciting things that I like to talk about all the time, because it's one of my great passions, is story time. It's our first introduction for many young families into the library system. They're coming with their new little ones, and they're coming to libraries to learn, have somebody obviously read to their children, but also learn more about literacy, get connected back to the library, maybe if they've taken that gap between when they were kiddos and then they were in college and they were moved to some other community, but now they're back, they have their own children and they're bringing it back to the library. Near and dear to my heart, this past year we had over 37,000 children and families engaged in story time activities at our library. And that's happening at all of our branches, different days. It's really an exciting component of our regular library programming. Another few things about ongoing library programming. This past year in all branches, we are now doing a concept called Read, Stay, Play. That's more of a passive library experience for our families in which they're coming into the library and there's toys or manipulatives out around a thematic type experience. Like, as an example, at Watertown, I just had dinosaurs the other day and parents were down on the floor doing dinosaur puzzles and building foam dinosaurs, all kinds of good stuff. And we also have books out about dinosaurs. So it's a passive literacy experience where families have ways with the materials in the library to engage with their children in a fun environment. And one of the exciting things about it is around that environment, we put out little prompts cards where families can have conversations with their kids. And these may be STEM related, science, technology, and engineering, math conversations, or they may be literacy related conversations like, hey, can you count the number of dinosaurs? And that seems really basic to maybe some people, but as parents, initiate that journey of literacy and education with their children, they're thinking about how can we have this conversation? So we put up little hey, questions or conversation starters as we call them. So that's one of our newer things, but it's happening at all of our branches.
What's the title of it?
Read, Stay, Play.
Say again.
Read, Stay, Play. It's kind of like we made it up, but so they're coming in, they're reading, they're staying, and they're playing, and it's all thematic around a topic. So that's one of the other things, like we have Tales for Reading, classes and activities, many great things happening that are just part of our regular library experience. I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about what I would call some of our diamonds or exciting new things that maybe you haven't heard as much about, but are also part of this library experience. Some of our accomplishments in 2022 that I'm very excited about is the continuation of our virtual programming. During the pandemic, we started doing Monday Fun Day, as we called it, which was story times and book talks and different things online where we were engaging in a virtual capacity as the library doors were closed for people coming in for story time and those child literacy and teen literacy activities. We could still reach out and connect with them. Well, we've continued that. We've changed it up. We've learned, we've grown, and we've found that we have a regular audience of 100 or 200 people. We rotate those every 2 weeks now. That content's up through our social media sites, our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I have to think of what they are. Those social media sites, and families can view it at their pleasure when it fits their schedule with their little people or their folks that are gathering around. And as an example, I have a daycare at Watertown. I'll throw Watertown references. Sorry, I'm not selecting any library as my favorite. No, but I'll throw those in there because those are my most familiar. But I have a daycare provider in Watertown, and during the wintertime, they come in during the summer with this big cart, the 8-seater, if you've ever seen those tiered carts where they push all the kids in the daycare. Well, during the winter, they can't wheel that 8-seater down the road in the snowbanks and all that and get there. So they have told me regularly they participate on a weekly basis in watching what we put on for library content. We've also been very grateful and blessed to have legacy funds to provide some as part of that Monday Fun Day virtual content. We've had McPhail do some music. We've had some other petite concerts, some other very talented people provide literacy music experiences also through Monday Fun Day. So that's one of those diamond programs that we've grown through the pandemic. We wanted to get there, but the pandemic gave us a big nudge, and it's been exciting. Another program is the maintenance, and this is gonna sound like a lot of internal jargon. I'll try and talk fast, but make it clean and easy. We unfloated. I know it's gonna sound unfloated our Easy Reader collection. Which you're like, what the heck are you talking about? First of all, Easy Reader books are kind of our first bridge into learning to read for children. They're books that maybe have a word or two on a page or just a few sentences. So we have the picture books that maybe the parent reads with their child. The Easy Reader is when the child is going to take that first step into more independent reading. So we took those books, we did a nice weed of the collection, looked at things that weren't circulating really well, also looked at it from a DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective to make sure that the books really reflected the mirrors and windows of children within families within our community. And then we looked to make sure that within every branch of a library, we had the book level 1s or A's all the way to the book level 4s or 3s or whatever the publisher, 5s, whatever the publisher has. So at my branch in Watertown, a family can come in who's got a beginning reader and they want level 1 or they want level A books. They can find that full breadth. And what the unfloat bit means is that before maybe somebody checked them out at Chaska and all the level 1s ended up at Chaska and all the level 4s were in Waconia. Well, now this means that at every single branch we have that full kind of range of early literacy books that families can come to expect and come in. And in that collection, not that books won't be checked out, but we have quite a number of them, and they'll be able to access those resources for those first literacy steps. So it was a big project. It was an exciting project because it was done in collaboration with another team, our collection team, both from the DEI piece and also with the weeding and such. I'm going to highlight just a couple of others of our diamonds or gems. We have continued to grow our virtual library card. Virtual library cards are in place and working in our schools in Waconia. We've added grade levels and students. It gives those students 24/7 access to library resources virtually. They can check out a book on that card. They can access online resources to help with test prep or to maybe do a school report of, hey, I need to find 3 resources and it's tomorrow my report's due, because nobody waits till the last minute. They can find those resources online and jump in there. We are continuing to grow that project. Right now it's a success story in Waconia. It's been going for a few years, but now we're looking at opportunities to partner with our other school districts, and there's conversations going on like with Eastern Carver County Schools, Watertown Mayor's Central Schools, and how that virtual library card can expand across the county, which is really exciting. And I would be remiss in just a couple more gems and diamonds really from this past year. Paul has, I don't know if he's talked with this group, but we got on board and got really rolling and have fully implemented to a large extent something called the booking module. And I know a lot of internal jargon again. What the booking module is, it's an opportunity for us to ship materials. You know how I talked about that dinosaur kit that we used in Watertown on Saturday this week, to another branch that wants those same materials. And before that would require me calling up Jody or emailing Jody and say, hey, can you dig in your closet and find this and ship it to me here, and this is when I need it. Now through our CRC Dynex software, we have the ability to go in, make a reservation, and have that arrive in a timely fashion, and do it in a way that people can create a plan ahead of time And the staff know when it's coming to check it back in and really access the full breadth of, maybe not the full breadth, but a lot more technology features within that software. So it's really exciting to have that. And things that are flowing back and forth are things like the kits right now within youth service, story walks. If you've ever seen a story walk that's around, we're able to book those in advance, and then they travel within our system with our courier and get back to the branch they need to be at. So that's a really exciting thing. And then finally, I would be remiss if I did not talk about our summer reading program. Obviously a big gym. Kids having things to do, whether they be coming to see a performer, participate in classes, activities during the summer, all those great things, and also read books and do book reports and maybe win a few incentive prizes. Always a gem within our program. And this past year, we didn't quite make it. I was really hoping, because I'm the person behind the scenes who looks at all the data. We didn't quite get there, but we were almost back to pre-pandemic and 2019 levels, which was like so heart lifting, because during the pandemic we kind of saw that hand selling and personal touch of talking to people. We had taken a dip with the kids who were participating, but this last year we were almost back up there. So it was just wonderful, and I'm sure I am of 100% belief, because I have great faith in the Carver County Library System, that we will surpass that level in 2023. I'm all for where we're going to be. And then in my last 2 seconds here, I think it'll be longer than 2 because I'm a babbler. In 2023, we are looking forward to a few big goals. We're revamping and really invigorating our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. You might have heard or read about that, and it's in the report if you want more. We're also looking at doing some intensive DEI work with our story times, and collaborating with collection and some Dalkey grants that staff wrote. And also, we had another few staff members write some wonderful Dalkey grants. We have a grant for some STEM type activities for our children and teen youth, predominantly preschool and school age type programs. And they're already starting to roll out this spring. Their classes and activities, they're also going to be part of story time and maybe even some kits. So looking at those kind of things that are coming down the road in 2023 as big goal items, our 1,000 books, our DEI, our STEM kits, and really appreciative of the Dalkey grants that I know the board has had opportunity to talk about and review as ways to innovate and really fund this type of programming. And in conclusion, I'm looking at my minute, I have 1 minute, I just want to share something that is truly core to me. We talk about all these gems and things we do that they're really exciting and jazzy that we do as a library. The other day, like a week or two ago, that really speaks to the value of libraries in our communities and making sure we have open access and doors for everyone. A parent was assigned, or a child was assigned Ellis Island type diversity, like follow your family narrative coming through Ellis Island as an immigration exercise at one of the schools in our Carver County area. And this child is a diverse child. They do not have that sort of narrative in their background. And fortunately, they were able to have conversation with the teacher. The teacher's like, okay, design your own project type thing. Where did they come to find information and seek resources to explore? In this particular situation, it's a South American journey and a slave journey. Where did they come? You all know the answer because I'm speaking to the choir. They made the call to the library, to one of our youth service librarians, and that person put it out to the team, and we've all been responding, which I think the ultimate gem, as we talk about library services and people seeing us as really that resource, and the door is open to all, and if I can't find it at my school or I can't find it in the middle of the night, I can find it online. So that's where, I think I went a minute over, Jody. I was tasked to keep it to 15 minutes, and as you can tell, I'm a talker. So thank you for letting me come, and I'm certainly willing to answer any questions because I talk fast.
Just a comment, I love your energy, and I think that the future of library, sometimes people think library is dead. It's the future is in the youth, and the connection, the multi-generational connection, and where do they go to get resource, and where is the friendly help? So I appreciate your energy and knowing it's alive and well.
It is very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My mother went through Ellis Island in 1909. She was 3 months old. So, quite a place, quite a story, big story, huge story.
Well, that was DEI again. You went through that
Sorry,
typically.
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh, you gave it a, yes, I read about it in your beautiful hand.
Yeah, and like I said, there's lots more things here. If you want more reading, we're always happy to provide.
You've had a lot of training in that, just recently.
Yes, and more coming through that wonderful Dalkey grant that was awarded. So,
Plus, it's your a goal that everyone in the staff has it. I thought that
Yes,
was
we do.
wonderful.
yes, we do. 2023 is going to be a wonderful growth year for all of us.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Please.
Tricia. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely, thank you.
Nice to see you, Trish.
Yeah, I'm always happy to come and talk, as Paul knows. It's put a quarter in me.
Thanks, Tricia.
Put a quarter in.
That's really good. She has a lot of energy.
Is the
Really
entire,
do it.
everybody I meet that's affiliated with the library is like that. Full of energy, full of,
Love for
for people
her
in the
work.
library. It's great.
Was she the one that came to Chaska a long time ago, just before COVID, and spoke to us? I remember a very energetic. Could it have been her?
Could have
'Cause I
been.
thought you welcomed her back, or she said it's nice to be back.
Well, Tricia had presented last year to the library board about youth services as well. Bless you. This is her second year as the chairperson for the youth services team. And so you had heard her report again last year.
She makes us, well, she's a credit to our Carver County Library, for sure.
Next item, budget updates.
Sure, thank you.
Are we broke? Oh no, just kidding.
No. Really no major updates at this point of the year. We're just getting settled into the 2023 budget. We're still working on shifting rollovers and seeing what needs to happen there from 2022. Kind of wrapping up and working with finance on, there's a whole piece of credit card expenses that finance and accounting has to work through. So just taking time to review some of those pieces, and that's what, there's a small budget team that meets monthly at the library, which consists of myself and Kristen Hahn, our operations supervisor, Susan Blatz, our administrative assistant, Bob Lincoln, who's the systems administrator, and then we work with Diane Rugland, who's an accountant in finance with the county. So like I said, we meet monthly together, and in some cases we go line by line and go through everything together to make sure we're on course. And then other times of the year right now, we'll be looking at those budget rollovers to see what's appropriate and what needs to happen there, so. Yep. Any questions?
Actually, I was going to ask Tricia one question, but then my eyes kind of couldn't find what. I read something, I was trying to find it, I couldn't read it, but I just want to comment that the summer food program, is that still going on, or how does that work? Because the one that says replaces the Chaska summer food program, is it coming out from Chaska Library, or is it just all of Carver?
So and I don't know if you want to speak to this, Paul, he's probably referring to the every meal program
Right.
that we had, and currently it's not, we don't have it available. We had been working with public health on that.
Yeah. So that had been, for a year or two now, has been a goal, a strategic goal task of ours, to be working on a summer food program for kids. And last year, we had the opportunity to partner with, as Joey mentioned, the Every Meal program, which is somewhere from out in the cities, I believe, and they're throughout the whole metro area. And we, for I think either maybe 3 or 4 seasons, what they identify as seasonal distribution times, had been distribution points for them. And we just had cartons and cartons of meals coming through at all of our branches. About 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, as we received correspondence from them saying that due to financial strains, they had to rethink their approach to their distribution. And unfortunately, they weren't going to be able to continue with all the partners that they had been working with at that time. And so the distribution out through the libraries as an outlet was pulled back. So for us right now is we met that goal or that task, if you will, and that we had done it for a period of time.
Okay.
But right now we don't have an alternate source to replace that as a way for us to, for example, be a public distribution point. Yeah.
I was just curious. I know that even back in the day when my daughter was in school, I mean, I think they used to give food to some of the kids to bring home for the weekend. Because
Correct.
sometimes the only meal that a student has in school is that meal at lunch. And that's it for the whole day.
Right.
Which is kind of insane, but
Yeah.
you know, we don't fully understand it until we go through it ourselves or something like that, but yeah. So in the summer it's even worse because there's no school. So I was curious about that.
Yep.
Where did you go to school? Elementary?
Malaysia. We
Okay.
were in one of the government, well-funded government schools.
United States government.
No, Malaysian government, it's a Catholic school.
Catholic school.
Yeah. Okay, so next item, library director or Jody. What's
Sure,
the update?
absolutely. Well, there's been lots going on, a busy start to the year. One of the most exciting things literally just happened yesterday. We finally launched our automatic renewals and our text notifications. So that's been a big start to this week. Long time coming.
There it is.
Yep. Long time coming. So things have been going fairly smoothly. I know our tech team's been following it very closely to make sure we're not hitting too many bumps along the way, and have done our best to prepare staff with FAQs so that they could interact with patrons and answer questions that are coming up along the way. So very exciting, and it'll be interesting to hear feedback as we roll further into that from community members and patrons, certainly. Another very exciting piece that we just announced at our all-staff meeting was that in 2022 we did reach over 1 million checkouts. So that's essentially, we had an all-staff meeting on February 3rd and launched with that announcement, and congratulations and thank you to all the staff for their hard work for that. An interesting piece of that is certainly noting the percentage of increase with digital checkouts. And I've included some of those numbers in here as well. So 25% of the total checkouts in 2022 are owed to digital materials, primarily through our Libby app. And that's like a 69% increase since the previous year. So very interesting to see how, yeah. So, and I don't know, Patrick, on behalf of Collection, if you want to add anything else to that, but.
One of the reasons that is such a huge thing is we changed vendors. And so we had something called the Cloud Library, which was only 5 libraries participating. And then MELSA got all 8 library systems together on a company Overdrive with the Libby app. And so I think it just exploded because of COVID, and it exploded because of all of these new resources that came through MELSA. And I know that in this month's statistics, it's 29% of the search already for this year.
Right. And yeah, then I would just highlight what Tricia mentioned, that we also at our all staff announced an all staff goal for the year ahead related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're going to be looking at, or one of our librarians, Kristen Schneider, who was a facilitator in the Project Ready program, is going to be curating a list of resources that staff will be able to select from, to whether it's videos or written materials that they can have an opportunity to view or to look at, and then it will culminate next fall at our all staff meeting and have some time for discussion at the all staff or with their managers and supervisors. So really exciting to tie into the work that Collection and many of our librarians have been, both youth services and adult services, have been working on with diversity audit in our collection. So that's what I'll highlight from my report, but I'm always happy to answer questions if I can, or I'm able.
No, I don't know if I got the automatic renewal, but I had to renew one, and all I did was hit a button and that was it. That's pretty easy to do. I brought it up, said, oh, it's due for renewal, do you want it? I said, clicked, that was it. But that was fun to do. Next item, did anything from Nick? Did he anything to you? Or?
No, the latest update in terms of the director position is that they're looking to repost again, since they did not hire a successful candidate, so they're looking to repost again probably within a couple of weeks, but stay tuned, we'll keep you updated along the way. So in the meantime, you're stuck with me.
Yay!
Now we have the trustees and commissioner reports. Chanhassen.
If you wanna, as always, I got lots of pictures and 3 quick stories. Page 1 is a picture of Laura Landvik. That's the most people we've put in the Wilder room since 2019 maybe. Had about 100 people in for the Lorna Landvik visit. She's an author and used to be a stand-up comedian, so it was a great presentation. The next page on page 2 is a quilt display. That's something we do at Chanhassen. We talk about passive programming. This is another community gathering thing where we allow members of the community to show off their artwork, and then other people from the community come in and watch it and take a look at it. I had a group in today of people who specifically only came in to look at the quilts. And then if you want to turn over to page 4, the picture of Ingrid doing story time. And I realized I had not included, this goes off of what Trish was saying, a picture of anyone doing story time. It's the most basic thing we do. We do it, 5 times a week at Chanhassen. And I never included any pictures of it, and yet it's the most successful thing we do. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our 3 youth services librarians, Ingrid, Heather, and Lisa, who do story times at Chanhassen, and Kristen, who does them at Victoria. And that's all I have.
Are those story time mainly for children or are they also for adults?
Well, there's 3 different levels of story time. There's baby or lap set story time,
Right.
and then there's toddler story time, and then there's a family story time as well. And we just started doing lap set story time at Victoria. We're doing it before the library opens because we don't have an enclosed spot.
Right.
And it would be too distracting for, I think, both the babies, the moms, and the other parents, people using the building to try to do it during library hours. So Heidi arranged for us to open the library ahead of time for the program.
So how early in the morning is that, like?
Oh, it's just 9:30.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just a
9:30.
half hour
Okay,
before we
okay.
So that's me. Thanks.
Next, we have, Chaska.
Yes, Chaska. So I do have a couple of pictures related to story time, although one is not necessarily our staff facilitating story time, but it's a outside community group or organization that does music together in the valley. And so they came in and offered at some of our branches a sample program centered around music. And for me personally, that's something near and dear to my heart. That's my, a big part of my background. I have a master's in music, and the correlation between music and literacy I think is so huge. So it's great to hear Tricia speak to how these different elements play into literacy. And so it's really a fun opportunity for families when we can find outside, vendors and instructors that will be willing to come in and facilitate some of those on occasion. Certainly many of our own librarians, youth services, have all different kinds of talents and creative sides that they bring into, whether it's music or storytelling, puppets, all of the above. So fantastic. I actually got to film Miss Jennifer doing a virtual story time in our fireplace area one morning. So that's something that we'll bank then into our library YouTube as well, so folks can come back and view that. So. And then, of course, we've had our adult winter reading program happening across the whole system. So this is a little bit more system-wide information, but as you heard from Jeff last month about his role with adult services, he pulled together some numbers for us today. And through February 4th, we've got close to 250 registrants across the system. But the fact that there's over 800 book reviews, like the engagement from those participants, I mean, just huge. So it's been really fun each week. Bridget, who oversees our Beanstack software right now, she runs reports and shares those stats with us. So it's great to see those numbers climb in that engagement. And then I know some of the other communities, especially Cologne and Watertown, have been kind of part of this Communities of Belonging initiative. So we've joined in that initiative in Chaska as well. And Jennifer's been kind of taking the lead from our staff to be a part of those conversations. So lots of great, exciting things happening at Chaska.
What is the Communities of Belonging program? What does that actually?
So it's an initiative, if I can speak, and it's in partnership with Carver County Public Health, and coming together, trying to bring lots of different community members together to create like a welcoming community and an environment where, you know, that we all may have different voices at the table, but that we want to create places and spaces in our communities that welcome all. And I don't know, Paul, you've been part of this initiative more as well, so if you want to tack on anything.
A little bit in Cologne, and then I assigned that role to another staff person, and is the Waconia one has started up. So one of the things they, at least with the Waconia process, but they also did in Cologne, and that is a community survey to do some current demographics and ask some questions about, you know, do you feel part of the community, and where do you see challenges in our community? So the Waconia survey was just finished a couple of weeks ago, and then they'll respond in each community according to the needs of what those surveys are identifying. In Waconia, they partnered with YMCA, and there's a research division of YMCA that led the survey work, and they have some experience there. And noting, of course, what we talked about at the last meeting, and that is that surveys are tough things to give responses to, and you know, identifying how representative this may be of the broader spectrum. But the idea is that this is grassroots from the bottom up, giving people voices and an opportunity to look at how our communities are supporting each other, individuals, and things like living room conversations and those type of tools, I think, are also being implemented by this group. And again, just highlighting this in partnership with Carver County Public Health, and Patrick Stieg is the staff person who I've seen is the liaison. I don't know if it's a formal assignment, but I've seen Patrick involved in at least 2 of the communities of belonging. So. Good grassroots work from frontline.
The Novel Young America Waconia update.
Sure, and Watertown, including in that. So probably the biggest news, and I can't remember what stage we were with the report, so excuse me if this is a repeat of the written report, but we did fill the position for our operations supervisor, for which Carrie Campbell had been our supervisor for 3 or so years and did a wonderful job and very hard shoes to fill. But we're very happy to announce that one of our internal candidates, Jacob Manning, who had been working at the Watertown branch, was awarded that position. So he will be starting, not next week, but the week after. It had to get lined up with payroll periods, and I had to think through exactly when his start date is. But very excited that Jake is going to be in that position. And actually from the top, what I ought to say is my apologies for arriving late. But it is another item to report, and that is that all of us, Patrick, Jody, and I, and all of our staffs together have been in conversations and doing our annual performance evaluation. And so I was in a meeting with the staff this afternoon, and it's just, you know, you can block off however much time you think it's going to take, and sometimes they go quick, and sometimes they take a little longer, and it's not a conversation you kind of want to put the brakes on too much. So that's where I was this afternoon, And the next step of that, and it was hard in this meeting to be talking about what we did, what this person did in 2022, and not talk about where we want to go in 2023. And so the next step that we will be doing is February 15th. Tomorrow is our deadline for doing the evaluation component. And then the next month is we'll be talking with staff about goals for 2023, some of which we've identified as system-wide. Patrick's been leading the charge on getting that articulated and rolled out, and then of course staff will have their own individual goals for the next year. So all good stuff. Sometimes not always the most comfortable conversations, but they're important. At our county managers meeting a week ago, one of the questions that was asked of our employee relations director, Carrie Endercutt, you know, is there a movement about having continuous performance evaluations versus annual evaluations, you know? And then of course there's a lot of opinions on that on either side of the camp, but we affirm that the annual evaluation review cycle is an important one. So
Do you all do like semi-annual review?
Yep. And then
As
there's
a stepping stone so they
a
don't
touch
get-
base
Right.
that is a sign-off thing that we all do. So it is regimented, and then of course we are encouraged, and we do, is continuous review and continuous work with staff throughout the year as well. CERT changes, the policy changes that Jody mentioned, just, you know, there's other downstream rollout stuff that we're doing. So we have some things like our welcome brochure, right? Documents like that need to be updated to reflect those changes, and so those are some things we're working on as well. And I will mention that and I did highlight it in the report, is the Next Chapter Book Club, which is a Dalkey grant funded project that we're doing up at Watertown. Has had 3 sessions now, and it really has settled down into something that really it's wonderful. It's meeting the needs of individuals that have adults that have developmental disabilities, and the group that we're working with from MRCI, a community organization, that has right off the bat come together very well for this purpose, and so we're just real pleased with the way this has gone, even though it was late coming out of the blocks, and that had been funded for last year's startup, and we didn't get the startup going until January of this year, but some good things are worth waiting for, I guess is a way to spin that, if you will. So, and then I'll just hand out to everybody, hot off the press, is the new brochures. These literally we just picked up from the county printing department, and this is to highlight just what a wonderful service, and that's the name of the department. It's called Client Services, from the Carver County, the IT department formerly, but they do the printing of a lot of our paper things, and so this is the brochure for the March through May programming season, and all of our programming teams right now are actively planning the June through August season. So, and as frequently as the case for us, we have feed in 3 different programming seasons. The one we're living in, the one we're just about ready to work up that's just gotten published, and then the one we're planning next. And I'll highlight, Alan will, you'll mention about the chess club, so. Good.
It's very compelling, beautifully done.
Isn't it?
This is nice.
We have there's been an evolution, very short story of the brochure is that we've done some different models over the years, and we continue to fine tune, and this past year we had an opportunity to do some revamping, both of internal process as to how we get to what we put out, and then what it looks like, and some things like the table of contents on the front cover and everything were feedback we've received that we think is the new brochure itself is pretty darn good looking.
Let's make sure Randy gets one of these too.
I sent 20 over to Diane Wabi, is that her name? yeah, this morning, so she'll get those in a day or two.
Okay, maybe we can go and mail that to Lucy.
Yeah, yep,
Drop it
absolutely.
off when we see her.
Sounds good, perfect.
Well, whatever extras we have here, if you want to take them, you're welcome.
Sounds good.
Is it downstairs?
I'll show Gwen.
Save me one.
Will do.
Okay. And it's all online, of course. This is just a paper version of what's in the lib cal and the library calendar.
I thought you brought us Baconia Living.
Oh, isn't that fun? I have one copy, somewhere here. I don't know, but I didn't. They left a block of them, but
That's really nice. That was great.
yeah, well, this is not mine.
He has one.
So,
He bought one. Frank bought one.
Paul?
good. Do good. Yep. Yeah. So that was, and I talk about this often as our memberships in the chambers of commerce for the communities that were able to do that. All this came out of me just having a cup of coffee with Heidi Nessa, who's the publisher of this, and then her inviting us to send them monthly updates, and then she called last month and said, "Hey, can we put this together quick?" And said, "We'll try." And so they sent a photographer out, and staff did some one or two pieces there, and then they sent a writer out to interview me for the article and came together.
Oh,
It's really nice.
Yeah, but it's those community partnerships from the ground up that make this kind of stuff possible. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for highlighting it. Yeah, it was fun to do.
Matt, do you have anything for
I do.
Melsa?
Yeah.
More money.
Yeah, I'm gonna just try and go real quick. So, the interim role, Jody, thanks for stepping in. I think we can skip a beat since Heidi's passed the baton. I think it might be more than a few weeks, it might be a couple months before we repost.
Okay.
A lot of reasons, but we'll get our person. The Villager, if you didn't see it, the Chan Villager, our very own Tenley Rutledge is in here. So I had a chance to interview. This is big because I think it's the first time, unless somebody correct me if I'm wrong, it's the first time we've had a youth rep on this board and a youth rep on the extension. When we talk about diversity, sometimes our mind goes to different places, but there's age diversity too, and so it's great to have you on the board and bring your energy, and we'll lose Tenley at some point, so go on to the next thing, but to be thinking about in our interactions, who else can we invite to come to the table, so that was an encouraging thing. A lot of things come out of the library, and we don't necessarily take full credit for them because we're a humble bunch, but here's another article that was on the cover of the Chan Villager. We don't always see it, I get the Herald, I don't get the Villager, but we get this at the office. And it's talking about the county being on the path to be the first county in the state with 100% broadband. And many might not catch it, but a lot of that started out of library, expanding the access by way of the pucks.
100% broadband.
We're on pace. We're about 1.5% short in the rural areas, and we're trying to close that gap. But a lot of that started through this group, even before the pandemic hit, which was how do you close those gaps? And one of those is connection and technology. And this team was on the forefront of bringing in the pucks and expanding the pucks and getting the funding for the pucks. Eventually, those pucks will go away because everybody will have broadband, but it's served such a very important piece. And it's gotten notoriety, everything from, we had Senator Klobuchar in the boardroom about a month ago, to local coverage, and then other peers as well. So a lot of things are coming out of library.
Everybody will have access to broadband, but not everybody will have broadband.
Well, access is first, and so if there's people that can't afford if they have fiber to their house and they can't afford it, there's programs for that as well.
Is that with Metronet, or who is that with?
In partnership with Metronet, but we've got the foundation in the ground, and then you just branch off of it. So it also accelerates from a development perspective. You keep your costs down because you're already stubbing into a place that's rural now, but in the future it'll be development. Good point, right? It doesn't automatically mean whoever has that has free broadband, but it does mean that they have access to it, and there's programs through the likes of like Verizon or Metro or whatever comes next for market rate. That says if I can't afford it to my house, I can still gain access to it. Child program would be a good example through COVID, is if your kid was accessing from home, there was programs to say, raise your hand if you don't have broadband at home, that will cover those costs. So first it's to get it there, it's get access to it, and then it's covering the other. So huge stories, and again, the point is it came out of here, came out of library board. Food security, you talked about the pilot program with the other group, that came out of library too. And I think when you nestle this all together, I guess one more is I stole the idea from this group that every time we meet, we're in a different location. Gives you a feel of the community, and I think it's super important. I don't know who started that, but I know it came out of library. We're now doing it in Melsa. It's the first time in a long time that we've rotated it. So we started, was it 2 weeks ago or last week?
Yeah,
We were in
about
Chanhassen.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
And half the people that were in the room had never been to Carver County. More than that, had never been to the library. And they walk in and they're like, oh, you guys must have the money here. And I'm like, this is a 20-year-old building. I think we're coming up on our 20th year anniversary.
Yeah.
And so it's a testament not only to the vision of, if you think about 20 years ago, that went out for a referenda and was funded with 70% support from the community.
Yeah.
And now here it is 20 years later, and people are like, man, it feels like a brand new library. It's not brand new, it's 20 years old. We've just done a really good job of maintaining it, we collectively. And then you hear other comments from a commissioner in Dakota. We kind of get sick of you talking about being the healthiest, the happiest, the fastest growing county in the state. You know, they get a chance to experience, and then they experience the warmth of how they're greeted. And there's a similar situated library in Eden Prairie. People choose to come to the Chanhassen Library because it feels like home, it feels like community, and it's an extension. When Brett was talking about how do we keep the small town feel in the small town, I would point to a library like Chanhassen has been able to do that even though they're a big city now, right? And others said the book roller coaster, we should do that in our library. Well, it was just a year ago that we fathomed the idea, put the window in so they could see where the book materials get to it. And I could go on and on and on, but everybody was like, wow, this is how we should do library. And then our next one will be in Scott County, so people get to see how Scott County does library. But I just want to impress upon you a lot of the things that seem mundane and daily or weekly or monthly when we're in this group, they bubble up and they become good ideas. And I'm happy to be a spokesperson for that at Melsa. I was elected board chair. I'm hoping that can be a 2-year period. Hard lot to get done anything in 9 months. And by the time you get the gavel and you get things moving, you really only have 9 months to get stuff done. But we're hoping that we get that additional monies. We're hoping we put those monies to use. And my theme as chair is to expanded access. What does expanded access mean at the regional level? You talked about circulation hitting 1 million again. I think it's the second time in county history we've hit 1 million in circulation. The Melsa network is tell me if I'm off, but it was the #1 e-reading circulation of any library system in the US. And it surpassed the state of Wisconsin. So when you think about it, it's 100 libraries in Grand, Hennepin's part of it, Minneapolis, St. Paul, they're all part of it. But to get, like, our library system surpassed an entire state circulation when it comes to materials. So pat on the back, and then the reality sets in too, is we as library will be dealing with the challenges of how do you pay for that? Because in the past it's been you buy a book, it sits on the shelf forever, unlimited checkouts in and out, you're ready to go. Now the new world is how does an author get paid if you buy a digital copy? It gets more and more and more expensive. And that hasn't been all sorted out, but it's a good thing to do, but it's also a challenge that we're gonna have to face financially. Tuesday, February 28th, you talked about a lot of support coming into that. Lucy Rame, I think, or Representative Rame will be critical on that. And she's getting pushback from our local community because she's the first Democrat elected in however many years. She's the key to the castle, but as you know, Carver County is largely conservative, especially if you get out of the rural areas. And so you're starting to see this rub. It's like, no, libraries aren't for Republicans or they're not for Democrats. They're for everybody. And so for her as a freshman coming in without a legislative assistant until 2 weeks before session started to carry this bill and do so well, and then also speak from her position of having been in the Chanhassen Library, I think it just goes so far. So if you get to see her, or if you're at the Capitol, beat her up for money, but also say thanks for what she's doing for our community. The board at Melsa is being reflected across the state as well. We have new members galore, but I was with Scott this morning, he's our executive director, and he talked about the dynamic and changing flavor of library. I think the longest tenure library director in all of our system is 3 years. Is that right? The longest tenured person? and somebody pointed to Jake, and it's not been continuous. It's
Oh,
been
like
sad.
currently,
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now? Oh, on the new, yeah.
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 And so if you look at the turnover, it's a turnover of ideas, it's a turnover of different energies, different perspectives. And he said we never, as a Melsa board, worked as cohesively and congenial, because apparently 20 years ago, it used to be butting your head against, it was super competitive. So it's fun to be part of that. It's fun that you're at the table and being part of that as well. And then two more things. One is we talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That comes in so many different flavors. I asked Jody to look into, could we do something for our Native American heritage? And she said, we already have. So I was like, that's great, that's awesome. And we'll do it again, probably in October or November. And so, you know, it comes in a lot of shapes and forms, and I know some people hear those words and it hits them differently. But we're leaning into some of those topics. And then finally, I was invited to go to the History Center, and the History Center in downtown Chaska, and they recognized, and they said, we want you to mentor us. We want to be able to bring the History Center into the next generation of people. And I just stopped and I paused and I said, you know, what would it look like to have different members? I held up Teddy as an example on our board. But I also held up, what would it look like if every fourth grader in our school districts came through the History Center once a year to plant that seed? And what if you did it in conjunction with the library? So you had an hour and a half at the library and an hour and a half at the History Center. So every fourth grader comes through both of those entities or multiple entities, and it was like you could just see the wheels turning. I'm like, this isn't for today. Like those fourth graders, they'll become fifth graders, and then they drag grandma and grandpa, and they grab, and you see this every single day. But the wheels are percolating. So if the History Center reaches out to you for how can we program better together, how do we use our general and central location, they'll do so. So a lot more than a Melsa update, but there's energy behind it, there's momentum, keep up the good work, and you're part of something that's bigger than the monthly meetings that we have. So, thanks. That's all I got.
Thanks, Matt. Any questions? Last item, I think we have Library Foundation of Carver County. Alan.
Yes, thank you. I used to be long-winded, but I converted to say more with less. And I have two items, foundation. As treasurer, things are really going smoothly. We've set up a calendar of meetings, and Susan Blotz has sort of she's self-delegated herself to let me know what's going on and what needs to be done as far as checks coming in and deposits, that type of thing. So hopeful about that and pleased. And the other thing is the chess club, that's number 2 in Norwood Young America. Paul set up a poster, the libraries took ownership of this. My motivation is to have a chess tournament at Stiftungsfest, so this is a part of the mission at Stiftungsfest, and so I'm really hopeful to have something going. This is going to be the 3rd year. We had our first meeting the last Thursday of January. It's the last Thursday of every month. And 2 people showed up, a mother with 2 children, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that this is going to grow. And
This has been down this
what
way,
sort of
if you see.
stuck out for me is these boys go to school on their school bus with their computer, and they're playing computer chess with Chess.com. I mean, when I was a kid playing chess, it was like, you know, learn the moves, and that was about as far as we went. That's still sort of about as far as we went 50 years later for me. Anyway, I'm hopeful for that, and one other thing I wanted to say. One of the guys on one of the people on the committee at the Stiftungsfest who's been the treasurer, the finance person for several years, is also on the radio station in Glencoe, and he has put some plugs in for the chess club. So, you know, I'm really pleased about things moving forward. That's it for me. I won't take any questions.
You should get one, maybe if you're going to have the chess club over at Waconia, have a little table of, chess strategy books. So when I was young, there's no computer, but you read chess strategy books.
Oh, yeah. I've got all-
King's
I've got-
opening or
yeah.
Queen's opening and things like that. And
Yeah. What's your favorite opening?
Just watch the Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit.
or you can watch the movie. There's a movie that that girl
Good
that
movie.
really good at chess.
You know, I've got my portable chess set along. If you want to play the game, we can go meet downtown. One of the bars.
I'm so bad at it now. I die.
You're not bad at it. It'll all come back. I dare ya. Chicken.
There's all the media packs at the end. You
Yep.
want to say anything about that?
No, not tonight. I'm gonna add one thing to send with you all, as our annual report for the year. So,
Oh.
pass those around, otherwise that's it, yeah.
This is our lucky day.
When are we meeting next week? Next month?
Waconia, I think.
Is it Waconia?
I believe it's Waconia.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my
I know,
head, but if it's
But
on
we'll
the
still,
calendar, we'll be
but I think
there.
we're going to do another virtual one next month. Do we need any, or is that already agreed on?
Yep, I think we're all set with that. Mhm.
So what's the plan for the Chaska Library, the new Chaska Library?
So the latest, kind of from the city's plan is that we're looking at 2027, potentially for opening. They have the city of Chaska has several other large kind of building projects in the works as well, that need to happen first. But we're definitely in the lineup. And then it's just coming to alignment when the county is ready to move forward with that as well, but there's definitely conversations happening about it, so. Yep. It's kind of the latest that I've heard, so.
Hasn't that been for the last 10 years?
Something like that.
This is the first time they put it in their 5-year budget, so 26, shovel in the ground, and open in 27. Of course, there's moving factors, and inflation's probably one of the key drivers.
And Jim, do you have anything you want to add as friends?
No, just we'd like to see them build the library faster. We consider Chaska a suburb of Carver.
Can I put that in minutes?
True.
Sure.
If there are no other business, can we have a motion to adjourn?
That may be the
So
goal
moved.
of the day.
I second it.
Second, and all in favor say aye.
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 I heard Chaska was acquiring Carver.
Congratulations.
Hope you're well, Gwen, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
This is wonderful.
you're really developing.
I didn't do anything.
Everything
I
is,
just
that's
moved
great
along.
though.
Capture that, exactly.
Nice to see you, Frank.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's anything I can.
I got
Things
one.
today weren't really
Get
things that
wet
were
on
like,
the way.
input.
Tough
based
deal,
sort of
but-
things.
I keep forgetting. How many times I say, hey, what do you think?
Brent has talked.
Too?
about-
Oh, very good.
How are you today?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
See you next month,
Sounds good.
if not before.
You know, music and literacy, that must be a strong correlation.
We can always